Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Iron Canon Podcast, your home on the Star Wars Underworld Podcast Network for in-depth discussion on the lore, the High Republic, and the whole canon of the galaxy far, far away. My name is Matthew, and I'm coming to you from the Underworld North studio here in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. As always, I'm joined from across the continent, all the way down in Underworld, Orange County. Your friend of mine, Mr. Joel Davis. Joel, how are you doing this week?
Good. We do the intro so much, I'm almost being able to get to a rhythm. I can just
Yes,
dance
rhythm.
to it.
So I should just mix it up every now and then, just to throw something off there. There we go. There we go. Yeah. You doing well? You doing all right?
I'm doing well. I'm doing pretty good. Doing
Um,
pretty good.
we're enjoying being
Exercising
able
a
to.
lot more. So
Yeah, there we go. It's good way to be. We're enjoying the ability to talk about shows and stuff that enjoying the fact that hopefully there's a deal that the actors can live with.
yeah,
Let's hope. This week we're talking about. You can see this shirt, Mortis. What the heck is it?
we're going to
What is
Mortis.
happening? Well, yeah. What is Mortis? We're going to Mortis.
What's
If
a
we
Mortis?
can go to Mortis, that's a question that we'll try and answer. What is happening in that Clone Wars arc? What are those mountain statues that Baylan is standing on in the show? We can actually talk about now, called Ahsoka. Why is one of them missing? Who is that? What's happening? This week we tackle one of Star Wars' great unanswerable questions. So buckle right up. First off, plugs out of the way at Iron Canon Pod, EYEONCANONPOD on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. Also, quick note: you can get all of our episodes, if audio only is your speed, on Spotify and Apple Podcasts just shortly after after we record, after we go live, and then I pop them up on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So check them out there if that is what you prefer to do. Here on the Star Wars Underworld Discord, not Discord, Star Wars Underworld YouTube channel. We'll get to the Discord in a second. Star Wars Underworld YouTube channel. We got YouTube memberships and super chats and all that stuff. Please do like and subscribe and follow and whatnot. All the socials, the Underworld Facebook, Iron Canon Twitch, Underworld Twitch, Underworld Twitter, Iron Canon Twitter. I guess you can't go live on Threads, but what for? We're going live on Facebook. That's how. That's
Not
how we
yet,
do this.
anyway. Hope so one
Yeah,
day.
yeah. I mean, we're going live on Facebook. We're going live in the Zuckerverse. Why not? We're going live in the Muskverse still, for some reason. As long as you keep joining us and engaging with us on that platform formerly known as Twitter, I'll still be there. Well, at Iron Cannon Pod. Anyway, we are on the Underworld Discord server, and in the Discord, there's a link down below. Join us, chat with us, say hi, give your thoughts on everything we do, that goes on the flagship and the rest of the network. Because they're over there on the flagship talking about Ahsoka episode by episode, and just get in there. We've been go back in the archive. We've been chatting about Ahsoka for a while, chatting about a whole bunch of stuff. Chat about Marvel, chat about Star Trek, whatnot, whatever we want. Whatever you want, just tag Joel, he'll answer. He'll be guaranteed to answer. There we go. Any events going on in the Discord?
Not this week. Maybe next week. We took last week off because of the holidays. So
That's right. Happy Thanksgiving.
yes, happy
Right on.
Thanksgiving.
How'd you celebrate?
I'm just meeting my dad. Pretty
Nice.
quiet and casual. So
Yeah,
that's
it's
nice.
gonna be. I talked to a bunch of American friends.
That's nice.
Happy Thanksgiving. So that's good.
Yeah.
I had a normal Thursday. It was a Thursday. I was in New York for Thanksgiving in October. So yeah, there we go. Underworld North in Toronto. Yes, how we roll. And last but certainly not least, the tractor beam, because it was American Thanksgiving on Thursday. I flew solo, talking all about I believe Afro number 38. Is that right? And a few other books. I kind of like I think the D Squad, not D Squad, Dark Droids, the flagship crossover. Right. And oh my goodness, I forget. It's here on the Underworld channel.
Bunch of comics.
It was on Thursday. What did I talk about? Anyway, comics come out Wednesday. Chris Abbott and I Thursdays at 12:15 p.m. Eastern, 9:50 a.m. Pacific. Grab your lunch, grab your breakfast, grab your comics. We chat about it right here on the Underworld YouTube channel and all the other places you get your podcasts, video podcasts. Haven't gotten around to uploading the audio ones, but that's okay. I'll get to them eventually. But because Chris was enjoying his Thanksgiving with family, I flew solo, and it was pretty good. I just chatted for about 20 something minutes on the different comics going on this week. So last week, because there aren't any new stories coming out this Wednesday, I think it's just Obi-Wan Kenobi or Mandalorian, and we're not doing those. We're not doing the adaptations. So we're gonna catch up and talk about last week's comics, because last week I did the ones from the week before, but I didn't read them yet, and so that's what we're doing. We're going back to last week's books and just chatting about
That's
them.
fun.
Chris and I have gone on a pretty good rhythm, and so check with the tractor beam, just going back and forth. We have a good banter. We complement each other well in terms of he talks about action and just story and kind of horror film references, and I do that too, but I also kind of deeper ideas about personhood, identity, and whatever Charles Soule throws at me, I try and comment on. He's not throwing them at me personally, I should clarify. He's whatever. So check that out. 12:15 p.m. Eastern time, Thursdays, 9:15 a.m. Pacific. If you're into comics, or if you're not and you just want to enjoy hear us talking about them, we don't really go beat by beat on those, because here on the On Canon podcast we don't do that either. But it's check if you do want to go beat by beat. Just one last plug for this: on Chris's channel on Star Raptor, he gives a recap, and so check those out, and then come over at 12:15 for our commentary review and whatnot on those comics. So it's been fun. It's been great. We started that during the strike, and we kept it going. So enjoying
Good stuff.
all the podcasting. Okay, there's the plugs. That's how it is. How is your week in Star Wars, Mr. Joel Davis?
Well, my week, I'm going to use it to do a reading passage for you guys.
Interesting.
From Yoda Dark Rendezvous. It's a story set in the Clone Wars. And the scene I'm going to read is taking place after some battles had happened. Yoda is with a couple of Padawans, and they're kind of traumatized, and Yoda is going to talk to them. So here we go. I'm going to start where Yoda actually starts speaking. And thanks to my buddy Red Leader to giving me this stuff, because this is one of his favorite books from Legends. Teach me about pain, think you can, Yoda said softly. Think the old master cannot care. Forgotten who I am, have you? Old am I, yes. Loved more than you. Have I, Padawan? Lost more. Hated more. Killed more. The green eyes narrowed to gleaming slits under heavy lids. Dragon eyes, old and terrible. Think wisdom comes not at a cost? The dark side, yes, it is easier for them. The pain grows too great, and they eat the darkness to flee from it. Not Yoda. Yoda loves and suffers from it. Loves and suffers. One could have heard feather hit the floor. The price of Yoda's wisdom, high it is. Very high. And that goes on forever. But teach me about pain, will you? Why, that's the Padawan. Mouth worked. I'm sorry, Master. I was angry, but what if they're right? He cried out. What if the galaxy is dark? What if, like Ventress says, we are born, we suffer, we die, and that's it? That's all. What if there's no plan? What if there's no goodness? What if the suffer blindly trying to find reason for suffering, but we're just fooling ourselves, looking for hope? That's it. What if there's nothing but stars and the black space between them, and the galaxy does not care if we live or die? Yoda said, It's true. The Padawan looked at him shocked. The master's short legs swung back and forth, and back. Perhaps, he added. He sighed. Many days feel certain of greater hope. Oh, many days feel certain of greater hope. I do. Some days, not so, he shrugged. What difference does it make? Ventress was right, Wise said, shocked out of his anger. No, wrong she is. As wrong as she can be, Yoda snorted. Grief in the galaxy is there. Oh yes, oceans of it. Worlds in darkness. Yoda pointed to the starscape projection table. There you see, darkness. Darkness everywhere. And a few stars. A few points of light. If no plan there is, no fate, no destiny, no providence, no force, then what is left? He looked at each of them in turn. Nothing but our choices. Asajj eats the darkness as the darkness eats her back. Do that if you wish. Why? Do that if you wish. The old Jedi looked deep into the starscape suns and planets and nebulas dancing, tiny points of light blazing in the darkness. To be a Jedi is to face the truth and choose. Give off light or darkness, Padawan. His matted eyebrows rose high, his swamp-colored eyes, and he poked. Why, with the end of his stick. Poke, poke. Be a candle or the night, Padawan. But choose. Why cried for what seemed like a long time. Scout, fetus served, Master Yoda told stories of Max Lemus and Jay Maroc, tales of their exciting adventures. of course, but also comical anecdotes from days when they were only children in the temple. They drank together many toasts. Scout cried, Y ate, Fidel served. Yoda told stories and ate, and cried and laughed, and the Padawan saved life itself with a lightsaber in his hands. Even in the face of treachery and death, and hopes gone cold, he burned like a candle in the darkness, like a star shining in the black entry of space. And that is from Yoda Dark Rendezvous from Sean Stewart.
Interesting.
Thoughts, comments?
It really feels like that great moment in Master and Apprentice with Qui-Gon at the end. Why do we follow the light? Why do we bother when there's always going to be dark? There's always going to be suffering. And Qui-Gon's answer, because it's the light. It's not like there's some kind of
that's
cosmic
why
game,
I chose it too.
It's not some kind of cosmic game where if we can only try and pick the winning side. We have to pick the right side, and sometimes it's going to win, and sometimes it's going to lose. But if you pick it's not simply a matter of winning and losing. Winning and losing, it's a matter of being in the light. And yeah, interesting. I wonder if Claudia Gray had read that. I'm sure she may have known that. But yeah, to hear that influence and hear that continued theme, even in a legend story. I mean, a bit of a later legend story, but still a poignant legend story. It's heartening, and
yeah. That's why I chose
for what we're going to get at later in this episode. Anyway, so yeah, go ahead.
That's why I chose it, because I knew it was exactly like this. This came out in 2004.
Okay, so
just before Revenge of the Sith.
Right, interesting. Okay, so that's a good 15 years, because Master and Apprentice came out in 2019. I know that because there are two big things coming out in 2019 was Master and Apprentice and The Rise of Skywalker. And
Mando Season 1.
And Mando Season 1, that's true. That's true. They all come out at the same time. Wow.
I think it's easy to forget Mando Season 1 because we were so in Rise of Skywalker mode, and then Mando Season 2 really took 2020 by storm, and that's the true star of the Mandoverse in a lot of ways.
But yeah, anyway, of all those three things, guess which one I was most excited for?
Yeah,
was Master Apprentice. But yeah, no, it's really, I mean, you guys know what I think, and I think I'm going to go into this even further later in terms of light and dark and gray Jedi and creamsicle Jedi and the idea of it. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's the theme. This we'll also get into next week. That George is pushing and George is telling us is choose the common good, choose hope, choose compassion and courage to do the right thing for the welfare of others and for the welfare of all. And yeah, part of that does include for your own welfare as well. That's not excluded, but it's part of a greater whole. And to understand the light in that sense, and to say, it's just as much the dark to ignore yourself and ignore your instincts. And that's something also people tend not to fully grasp, I think, when they want to say, ooh, cool, gray Jedi, or balance is light and dark. But yeah, we're going to get into that, I think, later on in the show. But should you see again, it's called Dark Rendezvous. I haven't read this
Yoda Dark Rendezvous.
Yoda Dark Rendezvous. I haven't actually read this book. I have it.
You actually find it interesting because there's also a really interesting parallel. There's a character who I've mentioned named Scout, and she is very much a little like Sabine in that she is a Jedi, but she's not the best Force sensitive out there. So it's not like, she's like, he has trouble like lifting rocks and stuff like that and doing like the Forcey stuff. And it's kind of interesting. It's like she still wants to be a Jedi and serve, even though she's not very good at it. She's not like a natural. Her door isn't like fully open, but she still wants to do it. And there's a whole conversation about like, Jedi who are like that, and it's Yoda and younglings, so you can't go wrong with Yoda and younglings.
I mean, that's High Republic Adventures right there.
And there's I think there's some really good like Yoda Dooku relationships in there too. So if you ever wanted like some good in-depth Yoda Dooku relationship, because they were master and Padawan once upon a time, so there's some good stuff there. But yeah, I wanted to read that quote because it's very much like that Qui-Gon quote you really liked. And it's like, this is all the way back in 2004. So
is that the one? Is Mace Windu on the cover of that book?
No, that's Shatterpoint.
Shatterpoint.
Yeah,
I think I might have Dark Rendezvous. I think I do. I do find like I if I see old, like especially first editions of Legends books,
Mhm.
in used bookstores for relatively cheaper, I snag them because it's good to collect them.
Well, this is getting
Again,
a
yes.
Essential Legends guide re-release,
Oh, nice.
so
Yeah,
this is
that's
why I
it.
also picked it because it's also getting a re-release. So
There you go.
yeah, but yes, that's my
Yes.
quote of the day.
Fun times. Yeah, it was a good story time. Good theology time from Joel
Mhm.
and from
Thank you.
the author of that book. My week in Star Wars, moving ahead all the way to canon. The latest hot off the press. I've finally making some headway into Eye of Darkness by George Mann, the beginning of phase 3 of the High Republic, and really enjoying it, really looking forward to it. I kind of want to finish this podcast early and go read. No, I'm just kidding. I won't do that. But yeah, like whenever I'm looking forward to having time to sit down and read a book, that's what you want, right? It's really
Mhm.
doing a great job of grounding you where these characters are, where they're going, where they've come from. Of course, if we've read everything, we know where they come from. It's interesting to read it before Shadows of Starlight #3. Read those Bell chapters because the first thing you hear with Bell is Jedi Knight Bell's Edifar, and so we know in Shadows of Starlight #3 we're gonna see him get knighted. That's what's heavily suggested in the back of Shadows #2. Yeah, it is this novel. It's really doing again a good job of setting up this novel so far. It seems like it's doing the work that Light of the Jedi had to do for phase 1, in that putting all the characters on the table, all the pieces on the table, not just for this novel but for all of phase 1. It's doing it for all of phase 3, and just seeing, okay, where is everybody, where is everything going, what's the situation with the Stormwall, and what's the situation with Avar and Elzar, and then, as I mentioned, Bell and Burry, and some really interesting Lena So and Elzar chapters there. So early
Mhm.
on, it's doing it. It's like Light of the Jedi, but I feel it's more coherent in Light of the
I
Jedi.
agree.
I didn't mind Light of the Jedi, but it was just so much going on, so many different characters.
This
This, I
feels
think,
better paced, I
yeah,
feel.
it's better paced. It's also, I think, doing a good job. It's really helpful that it's returning to point of view characters a
Mhm.
few chapters later, soon enough that you can really follow their own stories, each of their stories. Like you can follow the Lena So Elzar story with the speech that she has to give. You can follow the Bell, uh, the Bellbury story fairly clearly as well, and how they relate to each other, and how they differ in the distinctives of that. And of course, there's the Markion and Girastaros story going on as well. And so you have a real sense. First of all, you can follow them all, and you have a sense that they're going to converge somehow soon. So I'm only about 50 pages in, but making some headway. Looking forward to it, and yeah, enjoying.
I'm ahead for once.
Yeah, you are ahead. Dom's ahead. Chris Abbott's finished. So when we're all finished, we're gonna get together and have a good old fashioned review, which we haven't done on this podcast because I've been so slow reading. I moved all that stuff, but yeah,
We're
I think
slow too.
yeah, I think we're on track for doing that, especially since they're delaying or they're spreading it out so much better in phase 3. So appreciative of that. So that's my week in Star Wars, a little shorter, but let's transition to a bit of eyes on news during the podcast. Harriet, slightly here. Just want to, Joe, I just want to get your thoughts on this whole Dave Filoni promotion thing. Kind of what you thought of that, and where you think it might, how it might have to do with all the streaming shows that might come out this year, and just the development of Star Wars story in the future, and films in the future. I know we're going to touch again on that more next week, but what was your reaction to that news, and what do you think of it so far?
In terms of streaming shows this year, probably not because those shows were pretty much done for a while
Sure.
now.
Yeah.
Except Andor,
Fair enough.
that's it. It'll be wrapped up, but that's probably been in the works for a while. Um, I don't know. This kind of feels like a natural promotion to me. I feel like
Yeah.
this is just kind of Dave doing what he's been doing from what I hear since really Dave one, just now a little earlier, maybe a little more centralized and
Mhm.
actually getting an official title. The thing about corporate titles is a lot of them are kind of BS. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
unless you're the
No, I get it.
president or the CEO. A lot of corporate titles are just kind of we're just making this official, but you're kind of still doing the thing you've always done,
Yeah.
or with like more of an official here's the boundaries of your authority,
Mhm.
kind of a situation. Um, my read on this are kind of a few things. One, I think this is in some ways Kathleen Kennedy getting the infrastructure ready for when the movies start to pick up the pace again.
Yeah.
We know that Carrie Beck's also been promoted, and basically it seems like a bit of a triumvirate between Kennedy, Carrie Beck, and Filoni, where, from my understanding, is Carrie Beck will bring in the creatives to pitch a movie,
Mhm.
then Filoni will help kind of guide the narrative and kind of the development process, along with probably others.
Yeah.
Um, and then when hopefully gets to showtime, that's Kathleen Kennedy's job to produce and get all the monies and stuff ready to go. So, it'd be like, if I went to Carrie Beck and I say, I want to do a Star Wars film about racers. She's like, I love that, racers. And then, Filoni's gonna like, develop you like, racing in Star Wars, the thematics of that are like this, and maybe you can try doing it in like this era and all that sort of thing. And then
Mhm.
once the script is all ready and yada, um, then it's
Yeah.
showtime, and then that hopefully gets made. So that's kind of my understanding of it. I mean, I'm not surprised. It seems like it's a good role for him. I mean, you guys know Star Wars more than anything. I don't think we'll actually really notice anything drastic,
Sure.
if you ask me personally. Um, in terms of like quality and stuff like that. Because at the end of the day, Dave Filoni's not writing these things. He even said himself, "I'm not going to tell people what to do."
Sure.
So
You can
he's
write
gonna.
some things.
Oh no, yeah, he'll write his own stuff. He'll
Yeah.
write his movie and maybe Ahsoka season 2. But in terms of like
Mhm.
with James Mangold thing, he's gonna help. But it's like James Mangold's still the writer. Well, I don't know if he is the writer, but if he is the writer,
Right.
then he's the writer. That's on him to write something good. You you can only guide so much, as I like to say.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, that's
Sorry.
kind of where I feel like this is. I feel like I feel like it's both people understated, but people overstated as well. But I do think there is sort of a get an infrastructure in place for the next round of movies. And no, I don't think Dave Filoni's going to take over from Kathleen Kennedy if she retires.
No.
If anything, I think that goes to
Different
Carrie
job.
Beck.
Different job. Yeah.
Different job, and I think that might go to Carrie Beck before it goes to him.
Yeah. Here for that.
But yeah, that's kind of my take on it.
Mhm.
That's the only way I can read it.
Yeah. I'll say a few things. I really like the clarity that this brings. That this gives a very clear point person to first in terms of story, in terms of who to hold things together, who can Taika Waititi go to, and who can come alongside him. He's not going to tell Taika Waititi what to do if Taika's film ever gets made. He's not going to tell them what to do, but or James Mangold or whoever. But there at least is someone to say, well, this is thematically kind of more in line with what the rest of Star Wars is. Not say what Star Wars is, period. That's for Joel. That's for you and I to debate here on the internet what Star Wars is. But
exactly.
yeah, Dave Filoni's not going to be like, this is what Star Wars is.
Or he's not continuity police either.
No, he's not going to be continuity police, strictly speaking. I think he's going to be all character continuity. This is where this character is coming from, like what he would do in Clone Wars, right? He'd say to the voice actors, to the actors, and say, "This is the motivations. This is what's happening." And then becoming in guest actors would come in and whatnot, something like that. I like that clarity. Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's definitely not setting up anything to do. If anything, it's clarifying that Kathleen Kennedy has a very specific job that she is one of the best in Hollywood history at producing. Let's see all the films, all the massive blockbusters she's produced. Maybe training Carrie Beck to be her apprentice, right? Just like Lucas trained Filoni. And of course, we've gone back and forth about how similar and different Lucas and Filoni are. We can debate that too. But at least Dave Filoni will be able to say, this is what George taught me. This is how I interpret it going forward. Not by killing what we hate, but save what we love and adapt to the present moment, etc., etc. I do wonder. Well, let's say one last thing. I do wonder whether the story group and what that means for them. Do they take a back seat? Have they been taking a back seat for a while in terms of on screen? an on-screen story, are they primarily about paper canon now? Are they primarily about publishing now? And sorry, wait, we're the coughing podcast. Are they taking a back seat and not having that much say? Is a recognition that the kind of continuity, not policing, but safeguarding, or keeper of the holocron, right? Leland Chi, kind of stewarding, shepherding needs to have one single point person. And then for publishing, for novels, they can have this committee to make sure that there is continuity policing and clarifying, because otherwise then you don't get the license if you're going to break canon in paper canon, because there is a discipline of continuity there. So, and also again, it's similar kind of thing about thematic character continuity, thematic continuity, guiding storytellers, guiding authors. That's still there, but I do wonder, if Filoni being the point person, and having the clout, having the ability to say, if he could have said to J.J. Abrams, "Look, buddy, it's not Marvel, it's not a superhero movie. Maybe I like this idea. Maybe take it in this direction a little more." Then we might have had something that more fans would have. I know you love Rise of Skywalker, and I'm not going to dunk on it anymore. But
I don't think with J.J. Abrams. I think J.J. Abrams going to J.J. Abrams.
I mean,
stop Colin Trevorrow though, probably from doing.
Yeah,
his
you
thing.
never know. You never. Anyway, you want to jump in?
Well, I mean, he's not stopping Jon Favreau from doing his stuff. And you know how I feel about Jon Favreau's writing sometimes. So
yeah, but he might now. That's the thing. He might, and especially because they have such a close relationship. There's probably a trust there. I hope.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Writing, I still think J.J. Abrams is not that talented, even if you guide him. So
yeah.
I think
but with Jon Favreau, like J.J. Abrams isn't going to touch Star Wars anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think. I mean, David said no to John a few times, but it's like at the same time, he didn't stop. Season 3 still season 3. So,
which I don't mind season 3 better. Yeah.
But I think you got a good point about continuity of character.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, this is how I kind of see it, where, if, say, the Rey film happens and Stephen DeKnight, Sharimo Bay-Chinoy want to, I don't know, bring in Anakin Skywalker, would be awesome. But let's just, I don't, whether or not that happens, who knows? But let's just say that happens. Dave's gonna be like, he's gonna be like, well, Anakin Skywalker, he is at this point, he's like this. You're not gonna just have Anakin Skywalker show up and just start, doing something weird.
It has to be in line with what we see in Ahsoka.
Right. I mean, obviously,
and develop on that, build on that.
Right. I mean, there's debate about that sort of stuff because, it's like, where's that kind of, like people are like, well, Luke Skywalker did this in Return of the Jedi, so why is he doing this in The Last Jedi? It doesn't add up, So we gotta be, we gotta make sure to let if someone has like a bold idea.
Lightsabers. He chucks lightsabers in both films.
I know, but people are gonna be like that. So it's like you gotta kind of like, does what Anakin's doing thematically worth it for the story?
Yeah.
But I still think it's like thematically worth it versus, I don't know, just Anakin just like, now he's evil again. Which I'm sure they're not going to do. But I do think that is kind of like there to like, if I have a character like Anakin shows up, he'll make sure, hey, you can do this, or maybe you can do this, or like we can take this idea. Because I don't think Dave's the kind of guy who goes, no, it's stupid, don't do that. He doesn't. He never comes across that kind of. He can say, maybe we try this. Like, he give you an idea, suggestion. I don't know what I would have done with Rise of Skywalker, to be quite honest. It probably stopped Colin Trevorrow from doing his thing with the Force. That's what I got out of it, to be quite honest. In terms of like, Dave's like, this whole balance of the Force thing, Colin, this doesn't seem like a good idea, and kind of contradicts the other 8 films.
Yeah, there's that.
So I don't think that necessarily stops people from making Marvel-y films. I don't actually think it's going to really change that much in terms of like, Star Wars is not going to be deeper or something. At the end of the day, Jon Favreau's still going to Jon Favreau.
Yeah, I just think it's going to be maybe more consistent.
I mean, I don't know what that looks like, to be quite honest.
We'll talk about that next week.
Yeah, what does that? What does consistency look like? That's right. Obviously, people are like, oh, I know. Well, like, would that mean no Andors? And it's like, I don't know. I hope not. But again, yeah, I do agree with that. In terms of the story group, I don't know, man. I don't even know what Story Group has been doing since day one. It's like, what do they even do half the time?
I think they're primarily with the publishing now.
Well,
And
we
they
know they
always
did
have
some
been
stuff with
primarily.
Andor, so
Yeah.
there's that. So
I mean, if
I-
anything, both Filoni and the Story Group maybe would suggest, hey, here's these prequel characters. Here's this character, that other character. Yeah, why not include Anakin in this? Even if there's
Right.
someone who's more of an original trilogy person writing these stories, to nudge things in a certain way. I mean, that's the thing. That's what was so intriguing about Trevorrow's script. It really did tie in all 9 films in a way that I don't think Rise of Skywalker did. And so, or at least it started to, and it tried to. And it with some work and with some massaging.
That's true. Although I will say this, it still bugs me that Rey goes to the Netherworld in the Force and Anakin Skywalker doesn't show up at all. You get Obi-Wan, but not Anakin. What's up with that?
But then someone like Filoni could jump in and say, "Hey, why not?"
That's true. I'm surprised.
Yeah.
It's funny
Anyway,
that. But anyway,
this is the rabbit trail, the speculation.
I know, but I just want to just like wrap up and say it will be interesting because of the films we know outside of Filoni's.
True.
2 of the 3 are like so far off from like everything else with stuff that gives a lot more carte blanche to the creative to do different
especially
stuff.
The Rey film. It's
the Rey film and James Mangold 25
so far in the past. Yeah, and then Filoni's film is in this Mandoverse era.
Yes, smack dab when stuff has to happen.
Ahsokaverse, the Ahsokaverse.
Well, fine. Well, the New Republic era.
That one. That's
what we're but we'll talk about this next week.
Yes, we'll talk a lot more next week. We do have some paper Canon news to get to you. We brought this up a few weeks ago, maybe last week, a few weeks ago. Yeah, it is confirmed. The current run of Dr. Aphra is going to be ending with issue number 40. First off, Alyssa Wong's own Twitter. Well, I don't know. It's hard to chicken or egg here. The solicits did say, and this is our splash page, folks. Again, doing the forces of work. They noticed that the solicits said final issue for number 40. The solicit. So the thing that Marvel releases, kind of the preview description for, I think specifically for comic shops, say, hey, buy this issue, but also for us fans to just know what's going on, what's happening down the pipeline. And yeah, issue number 40, final issue. That is something that the splash page folks suspected, given that the last collected edition, the next collected edition, is only going to go to number 40. And then finally, Joel, you pointed out Alyssa Wong's own Twitter, they posted that they showed that, yeah, this is going to, now the solicits out. This run from 2020 is going to end with issue number 40. As I mentioned, we just did number 38. I talked about that on Thursday. And yeah, and it does feel like it's coming to a conclusion. It really does. And kind of what I mentioned last time is all of these at the end of Dark Droids. Dark Droids is bringing us to the threshold of Return of the Jedi, and so yeah, it makes sense. It fits Aphra's own story. I mean, in number 38, I'll spoil this a little bit. She has to go tail between her legs to Sana Staros and confront herself in a way that she's now finally able to do, and it really exemplifies such a profound and moving arc of Aphra's own, Shelley's own self-discovery and her own ability to trust others and to genuinely reach out and say, I need you. I mean, she has this really great moment with Senna. You deserve someone more dependable than me. Now Magna Tolvan's in trouble. Let's go help her. That whole arc. I tweeted this on the Iron Canon today. You know, Alyssa Wong has written the definitive Aphra story. If you want to get to know this character, read Alyssa's run. It is really coherent and concise. Goes through a whole bunch of stuff, especially with the Ascendant and the Spark Eternal, into Dark Droids and everything that leads into Dark Droids, and then really ties up so nicely, so well with what's happening with Dark Droids. I mean, tied up so well and so nicely with the whole Kira saga and into Dark Droids. I mean, Alessa's ability to work with Charles Soule, work with the whole crew, writing these crossover comics. It's been an essential contribution to comics. Yeah, and it's a central contribution to Afra's story, central contribution to comic books, to Star Wars comics, especially in this time. And so definitely, I hardly recommend check it out. It'll be sad to see it end, but also kind of like, we talk about Rebels season 4, right? We talk about shows that have a very clear beginning, middle, and end, and this one is looking like it's having a very clear end. Hopefully not an ultimate end. Hopefully there's got to be more for Afra's story. I want to see Alyssa Wong maybe hand it off. I don't know. I mean, they've done such a great job that do they want to quit while they're ahead? I don't know.
I mean, if
I
it's
know
given
Alyssa, they've just started on a Captain Marvel run, and that's just kicked off, and that's already exciting. I'm already excited about that. It's already done. Yeah, just a bit of a tangent here. I know the Marvels is in theaters. The Kelly Thompson run kind of lagged in the middle, and that ended on a high note. And then Alyssa Wong has taken up the Captain Marvel run, and it's really exciting, gripping. So
awesome.
But that could be taking up a lot of their time and energy. I don't know. I don't know how what their workload and everything. They're also writing High Republic, so we'll see. But yeah, it definitely can't be. There can't be the end of Dr. Afra's story.
Oh, no.
She has a lot more to do, I think, and so keep your eye out 2024 for whatever is coming next with our favorite rogue archaeologist. No longer disaster.
Yeah, Afra, this little thing. Afra's interesting because I think she's a primary example of you don't always need your original creator to keep writing your epic storyline. Looking at you, Dave.
Kieran Gillen, there you go.
Kieran Gillen created Afra as kind of my buddy Ray called kind of like evil Luke Skywalker with a little Indiana Jones in them, kind of a parallel to like Vader creating his dark family. And then obviously Afra was a big success. And then Gillen kind of wrote a spin-off, and now we're here, and Afra sort of blossomed into her own beings that's so removed from just, oh yeah, you were that character in that Darth Vader, kind of represent the Darth Vader side of things. Now you're kind of your own, you got your own little universe almost. That's spread across. Has it just been Alyssa Wong and Gillen who's written for Afra, or maybe only two?
Well, there's the audio play. That's also goes into Afra's story, Charlie's story with Santa, some of the backstory.
So yeah, you got the Alyssa Wong stuff. So it's like there's an evolution there. Whoever is the next person to write Afra, probably can evolve the character even more so. Hopefully, because I'll be, obviously, as I always say, very curious to see what the next era of Star Wars comics is. Because are they allowed to touch that Return of the Jedi, post Return of the Jedi era now? It's like, not.
Well, that's an interesting question because it's so saturated with novels. And novels from 6-7 years ago, the Aftermath trilogy, the Alphabet Quadrant trilogy, Battlefront 2, all that stuff. Yeah,
that's all in the span of a year, though. I mean, like after that.
That's true. That's true. Leading up to
Mando episode 1.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I don't see why not. I mean,
I would hope so.
Unless, if Chelly, we keep speculating when she's going to show up live action because she's so popular, but she hasn't yet. So who knows? I mean, maybe Skeleton Crew, maybe who knows what, but maybe Ahsoka. That'll be wild. That'll be something. I don't know.
Maybe Mando.
What I do want to see in the next iteration of her, though, is her truly embracing heroism, truly embracing a vulnerable heroism, a scarred heroism, but not an anti-hero and not this acerbic sort of in spite of herself, in spite of her inability to trust. But now, actually, here's what I've experienced. Kind of what I want to see with Vernestra in The Acolyte, for example. This kind of, right? And Vern is this prodigy who takes herself too seriously and doesn't actually, think she has it all together. In phase 3, I think she's going to learn that she does. She's already learned that she doesn't. I want to see Afra embrace a humility and embrace a courage, a moral courage that comes with everything she's experienced. And so that's a compelling story. Having read everything, I think that's a compelling story going forward.
Well, let's hope that whoever the next writer is going to build off on that stuff, because that's always that's always kind of the scary thing about handing it to a new writer. It's like, are they going to build off your stuff, or are they just going to revert back to
Yeah,
stuff?
but
That happens a lot in
it's a story
comics.
group in charge. Never know. Yeah, well, it's interesting because I didn't pick up on Captain America after Ta-Nehisi Coates' run because I just don't trust any other. I don't know because that was so great, that story. That yeah, it's a good question. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, we'll find out.
That's the curse of characters who don't really have a singular creative, but that's all comic book characters at
But
this point.
I think Afra does now. I think she's Alyssa Wong's character. I'm
I
gonna go
mean,
on the internet and say yes. Kieran Gillen made her, but yeah, Alyssa
does Alyssa
really
Wong
did.
have that power to like really control what Afra does?
No, but they've just made such a mark
That's true.
that
It's sort of like
you
from Frank
have, if you
Miller.
want to be true to the character, and it's the thing, character continuity. The story group has that kind of authority to say, yeah, if you're taking in this direction, it has to work character wise with what's come before, and that's the problem with paper canon. That's the problem with continuity, but also, this is we want to respect what Alyssa's done and
Oh
the amazing
yeah,
work that they've done. So yeah,
I'm
and
trying to.
that's the nice thing about paper canon is yes, we can insist on continuity a little more.
Unless you're Tim Zahn, but Tim Zahn does his own stuff.
Yeah, unless you're Tim Zahn, whatever. We've been over that. It's not a good guy. It's not a bad guy. Anyways, do you have anything more to say about Afra issue 40?
I'm curious who they picked to write the next run, if there is a next run, which I'm sure there will be. I can't see there not being, but it's like I'm curious, like when we'll get that announcement and who will do it.
I'll probably ask Chris what he thinks on Thursday. Yeah, might chime in. I'm sure he's going to chime in on his own podcast too. But
Also,
yeah,
I hope Kevin Scott gets the well, maybe Alyssa Wong could also get the next run, but Alyssa Wong or Kevin Scott get the mainline Star Wars.
that'd be cool. That would be interesting.
Yeah,
giving Alyssa the main run. Yeah, because I mean, Luke shows up in Afra, and there's a Luke Afra thing. Not yeah, just like they partner on a mission. Yeah, and it works out really well. And again, Alyssa being able to write this part of the crossover really well. Yeah.
Oh, one more thing. I'm so sorry, but I just saw this.
Yeah.
Alyssa Wong is LGBTQ plus, right?
They them.
Them.
Yeah.
I would be a little disappointed if I was just thinking of I for a second I thought, what if Charles Soule got Afra? But then I'm like, I don't know. Do I really want just a white guy to get an Afra? It's
like Kieran Gillen's bi.
Oh, that's true.
So he started that, and then yeah. So it's kind of community adjacent, and then yeah. I mean, also there's the
we love you, Charles Soule, but
and Charles gets that too. He understands that.
But actually, it would be cool to have like someone from the LGBTQ write the mainline Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean that would be great for Alyssa to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, but so yeah,
yeah,
that's all I got to say.
Fun times. I mean, here's a thought.
Mm-hmm.
Here's another thought. Again, my point about Afra embracing the heroic side, bring her into the mainline story somehow. Into this burgeoning Republic story. I don't know if she'll be able to take the Republic seriously, but she might try. I mean, Santa probably will. Magna probably will if she survives this. So, because they're both I mean, Magna's part of the rebellion now. She was an Imperial officer. Epic full page kiss with Afra. That was one of the most amazing scenes in all of comics, Star Wars comics. And then gets deprogrammed and joins the rebellion, and now is in has an interesting role in the Scourge, in Dark Droids. But yeah, that'll be interesting if Afra would join the mainline as a main character somehow in whatever this post Endor. Well, yeah, because we don't know fully what she's been doing in this aftermath year.
Right. I mean, hopefully, I'm doubt they're gonna kill her off or anything at this point. No. So
we also don't really know what Luke has been up to much.
That's been something that Leia and Han get to be in aftermath.
Yeah.
But Luke's always kind of had this air of mystery, and I kind of get why, because I think a lot of it was like, you don't really want to show Luke to Last Jedi to make it really special. It's like, oh my God, here's Luke. What the heck have you been doing for the last 30 years? I kind of also get it because, like, it's like big three, kind of the original trilogy's their era, post Endor. It's like you want to make them like now they're the legends, and now it's new heroes coming to the forefront. So,
But I mean, just the aftermath here, the 1 year
yeah, don't know.
is that. I mean, there's the Shadow Empire comic,
That's
but
about it.
that's about it. Is that where the main run is going to go?
I'll be very interested because that aftermath era has been pretty good on the continuity. Like they got some very tight continuity.
But again, like, have they been saving Luke for a comic book? Is what I'm wondering. Or are they saying we're not going to touch Luke at all until someone wants to come around and make a TV show or a movie?
That's kind of my bet, but that's my feeling on it. But I don't know.
Who knows?
Who knows?
I mean, yeah, like also in Princess and the Scoundrel, he shows up in that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then in Shadows of the Sith, that's
Right.
decades later. Fun times. All right. I think that's good on the news. We've gone quite a bit of time there. But interesting discussion. Curious to see where this is all going. I mean, there's no celebration. So when are they going to announce all this stuff? That's another weird thing. They had to have known this in October. It's weird that they didn't announce this in New York Comic Con. They announced Bounty Hunters ending, number 42. Ethan Sachs just got up and said, "This is it." They didn't announce Afra. Alyssa was there. Who knows? Maybe they just didn't know yet. Maybe, as in they, plural, didn't know yet what was going to happen. But yeah.
Maybe they wanted to wait till the strike was over, then they can start announcing news. Because, like, okay, strike's over. Let's just focus on geek stuff now.
I guess, but like they didn't. I mean, they announced a whole bunch of stuff at New York Comic Con, paper stuff that wasn't struck. So
beats me.
Yeah, beats me, beats all of us, beats Chris Abbott, beats all of us. Fun times. All right, let's buckle up, guys.
Take
Joe,
a road
you ready?
trip.
You ready? Put the key in the ignition, start the car, or wherever. Start the space car. Let's go to Mortis.
We're off to going to Mortis. I read very Wizard of Oz. Yes. So what's a Mortis? So yeah, Mortis.
What's a Mortis?
What's a Mortis?
What's a Mortis?
What's a Mortis? I know. So before we begin, I want to thank David Talk Star Wars on Tumblr for a lot of the his blog about the Mortis arc, which I kind of milled over to create the notes for this discussion. Sure. So thank you. I don't know if you listen to the podcast, but thank you very much. So yeah, the Mortis. Mm-hmm. So the Mortis arc to me has always been one of the most fascinating kind of things in Star Wars, especially from like a fan reaction perspective, because, and this is a lot of Clone Wars, where the thing about Clone Wars is it's like, because George was done at the time with making Star Wars movies, and he was gonna maybe do Underworld, maybe do a sequel, who knows. A lot of people, a lot of things from Clone Wars always have this kind of self-containment to them, right? Like Darth Maul coming back, pre buyout and pre Solo stuff. We kind of felt a little more like this weird self-contained thing that happened between the Clone Wars. We didn't know like he's gonna live, he's gonna die. We don't know. And same with Mortis, because fans like leaped onto Mortis, and especially during the sequel era, I particularly remember everyone was like, Mortis is like the secret end game. It's the grand plan from day one. This is where, we're going to have the epic balance of the Force, and we're all going to live happily ever after. The end. Goodbye. And they kind of got it right, I guess, because Colin almost did Mortis. I don't know what that would have been like. Would have been Mortis in name only. We can only speculate. I'll just say up front, I'm more happy that Dave's going to get to continue Mortis, because I'm sure he's a little bit more going to stick true to whatever. If there were any grander plans for the Mortis stuff, he's going to probably stick closer to that. I mean, he was there when it originated. Yeah. But I've always found the Mortis arc really interesting, because like so many people kind of latched on to like, this is important, this is big, this has ramifications for the whole saga of Star Wars. Which I always found interesting, again, because like I said, Clone Wars, there's a lot of self-contained stuff in Clone Wars. Mm-hmm. Like, I love Clone Wars, and to me, it enhances my love of the saga. But if I were to Thanos snap erase Clone Wars, I still love the saga no matter what. The saga's still complete to me. I don't, there is no like, and then secretly Mortis with the reason Palpatine fell off the cliff. There is no that. So it is kind of one of those interesting things that I think Mortis fans have always latched on to some sort of importance of Mortis. And again, we don't know what George's episode 7, 8, 9 would have been like. So maybe we do know that George was going to pull from that stuff, Clone Wars stuff, a lot more. And now it's kind of finally coming to fruition with Ahsoka. And I guess it started out with like hints in Rebels too. But yeah, Matthew, I guess I'll lead to you like kind of your thoughts on like the importance of Mortis to the canon of Star Wars, kind of the reaction of fans in terms of like Clone Wars being both this weird self-contained thing, and now post buyout, those sorts of threads can now really evolve and move forward as we are seeing now with Ahsoka.
I mean, it is interesting. It's the first. It's the first and until season 7 came, the only time we see the Vader mask and the breathing.
Yeah,
and this reminder that this story is situated within this larger saga of the fall and return of Anakin Skywalker,
right?
And what that might mean for the galaxy as a whole. Yeah, and then so we have the fan speculation about what is it? What's it doing? Does it exist? Why is there this? I mean, the thing at the top, all these questions.
Is it a plan for the future that we don't know about?
Is there some plan for the future, or what's with this dream that Anakin has from the sun? What why do they at the end suddenly wake up and Rex says, "Oh," or Cody, whoever it is, says you've only been gone for a number of minutes or whatever, when it felt like days to them. What's happening? Is it a real place, or is it just a force vision? All those questions. It just blew the curtain off on the galaxy and said, yes, we have these planets that we can conceive of, and we can, talk, sci-fi tropes talking about going to planets and visiting these ecosystems and whatnot. You understand? I mean, even our real world or our real universe, you understand the physical galaxy. But then it was the first time to really, again, blow the lid off and say, there is this deeper mystical, I mean, the energy field. I mean, it's not the first time, right? We, in Obi-Wan the Hutt, the energy field that binds the galaxy together. This is the first time we really saw it, or saw a representation of it, a manifestation of it in on-screen.
Like a Star Trek episode, almost thinking about it
in a way, but I think it's in a way that only Star Wars can do, because Star Trek doesn't have that kind of metaphysic, except for maybe the wormhole and Bajor and all that,
and Q.
And Q, yeah, a little bit. That's true. With the road and the Civil War thing. But yeah, this, I mean, those are maybe just representations. This seems a bit more fixed and a bit clearer, and especially that gets reinforced when in Rebels,
right?
They come back and we see them again. And yes, Sabine calls them archetypes, but how do these archetypes get promulgated throughout all these the mythologies throughout the galaxy and all these cultures in the galaxy? And as we finally see at the end of Ahsoka, beyond the galaxy to a different galaxy with these massive statues. And so yeah, it's a reminder, and again, bringing back your quote from Dark Rendezvous, it's a reminder that this isn't simply, we're not simply like in Star Trek, just simply a materialistic worldview or world building here. There is an end game, there is a destiny and a will to the Force, and where my mind goes, what role Anakin plays in that, and what at least George might have been saying in that. And I'll get into how that might work in a bit in terms of theology time, but yeah, it stands as one of my all-time favorites. I mean, I'm certainly not alone in that. Again, someone who, the theologically rich, spiritually rich Star Wars, it really goes there, and it's that creative swing that George always loves to make and that Dave loves to make, and it really pulled off. And it was a really gripping, dramatic story too, that arc. And so, and also, I mean, I mean, we'll get into the world between worlds as well, and there's some connection there, I think. But yeah,
I
it's that's all. That's a bit of a tangent, but
yeah.
in Rebels, especially, there's here's the funny thing, and again, this is a tangent. We don't need to go into this too much, but in Rebels and in Ahsoka, we we see both the world between worlds and the Mortis gods somehow linked, somehow, and so.
Well, I'll say this, and this is kind of I used to joke that in terms of like the Clone Wars pre the buyout, of course, and pre Rebels, that
Mhm.
Mortis to me always felt like the most important, least important thing in the world because it's
Mm,
like
mm.
it's. And I mean, what I mean by that
I mean,
is
it's like soccer. It's the most important of all things that are unimportant. Anyway, sorry, go
what
ahead.
what I mean by that is, Mortis happens, but it never gets really referenced again in any major way. Maybe close to like the Yoda arc, but that's kind
True.
of it. But it's like in terms of like the Mortis gods never show up again. We never hear about them. Anakin never talks about this. I mean, their memories got erased. I think. Did they get erased at the end, or did they remember? No, I think they remembered.
I think they remember. Yeah,
I think they remember. So yeah, but they never talk
yeah.
about it again. It kind of never shows up, and obviously,
I mean, does the Convor come around?
I think in season 7, but I don't count season 7 for
Yeah, I see. Like season 7 is after Rebels, and so.
right. So
Yeah.
that doesn't. So in terms of like when Clone Wars officially ends with season 6, and obviously you can't retroactively really change anything about Return of the Jedi. So
Mhm.
yeah, but then obviously we get to Rebels, and that's when the Mortis gods come up, and then it's like either because I mean I doubt this was the plan because I don't think Dave was like writing it thinking George is going to sell to Disney, but I do think that's when Dave was like, hey, George and I always did have ideas for like where this stuff could go, be it
Mhm.
his sequels or some other thing. Now is the time Dave Filoni, can maybe take the Mortis stuff and start to really run with it.
Yeah.
Rebels being that first big thing.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's always been something I've thought about a lot. But
Yeah. Sure, go
I
ahead.
guess we can then move on to Mortis itself. The real, so the question I think everyone kind of asked is Mortis even a real place? Is it an actual location or planet that you can visit? You have their star charts and, land your shuttle in. I think episode,
Define real. That's the question, though. Define real.
I mean, I just said it. Can I go visit that place? Can
Yeah.
Palpatine give me a star map? Which he actually did in episode 9. And I think Colin's kind of whole thing was Mortis is real. It's an actual planet that
Hmm.
you can go visit. Because Palpatine's like, you will give him the star charts to Mortis or something like that. Um,
Hmm.
so, Palpatine kind of knows where to find Mortis. Um, and that's where Kylo Ren goes in his Duel of the Fates movie.
Hmm.
But I think in the context of the Clone Wars, and this is where I'll change to you, Mortis is, and the whole arc is kind of just one big Dagobah cave scene metaphor thing. That
So,
kind of is like,
yeah.
let's just kind of do a whole Force metaphor 3-part arc
Mhm.
just for the heck of it, and we'll delve into some Chosen One Forcey stuff. And that's kind of our big metaphor episode.
So here's what we know is, first of all, they go and they see the Tython pyramid thing from Dawn of the Jedi, like the six-sided pyramid, which is symbolic, which is important, and I'll get to why in a second. Um, they have this vision. Yeah, he has this vision about Anakin. Yeah, he has a vision about Vader and all the suffering that he's gonna wrought by falling to the dark side and not fully grasping it. I think the sun manipulates all that and whatnot. We also have this story about about Obi-Wan and Ahsoka being picked up by the son and the daughter, and Anakin has to be in the middle, and the father, like there's this story, and you're getting to it in a little bit, but uh, this test of is he the chosen one, and the test ostensibly to replace the father, and then he refuses and whatnot. Again, define real. and and what's tricky is, we don't fully know. We're not really given the answer. Where my mind goes, and I'm going to bring this up, is kind of how some things we understand about, not understanding is the wrong word. what we believe about, especially with Eastern Christianity and a more ancient Christianity, about the way the Bible was read, and all the way to the Middle Ages, and we're starting to recapture that in some way. Some ways we've never lost it, and that is the terms allegory and icon, and those are very misunderstood terms, both because we think allegory is just a meaning story that, like Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. It's this allegory. Yeah, this means that and all that, whatever.
Aslan is Jesus.
That Aslan's Jesus, and that is in some way, the way Christians would read the Old Testament, and that gets complicated when it comes to, the Holocaust and anti-Semitism and all that. But that's a whole other tangent. To say, Isaac going up the mountain carrying the wood on for his own sacrifice, as an allegory of Jesus. What's there's the underlying belief there, though, and this is important to note, is there'll be stories in the Old Testament the Christians would say, this is what is telling us something about what God is doing, what Jesus is doing in these what the 33 years that he's here, and but this is set 4,000 years before. How could that be? And this is the important part: is there's a fundamental belief in the unity of all things and of all time together, that is bound together by a will, by a predetermined will, by a will that is holding all time together. And so telling the story that is in continuity, that is focused on this one event that happens, and I'm talking about crucifixion and resurrection, the central moment in the Christian story. And so the Passover, the Exodus of the Israelites, slaughtering the lamb and leaving slavery and going to the promised land, that becomes the allegory par excellence, the image, the icon for understanding what crucifixion means, what Jesus' death means. And so where I'm getting to this, I promise I'm getting there. From Mortis, to me, is a representative story that does happen in real time space. We don't fully know. It's kind of weird, timely-wimely, but that is depicting ultimately, I think depicting ultimately the end of Return of the Jedi and Anakin's role as bringing balance to the Force, and but also Revenge of the Sith, and how he becomes the evil of the galaxy to ultimately be redeemed and be redemptive and redeeming for the galaxy. And so this is the Force telling the story to Obi-Wan, Anakin, Qui-Gon, or Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Ahsoka, rather. Qui-Gon's in there a little bit. But it's the Force in this weird way, and this doesn't quite make sense. It's the Force telling it to us. We get to see it in a way. We get this window into how, what Anakin's role and identity is. And so, we can say, okay, yeah, the Force is just the plot coherence.
Right.
George and Dave saying, yeah, we're going to tell the story, giving us, but I think that's really, that to me is what Mortis is. And whatever, the questions about is it an actual place or not doesn't entirely matter.
I agree and disagree.
So actually, no, I'll backtrack on that. It does matter, right? That the Passover and the Exodus from Egypt actually does happen. That matters because it's something that really happens, that then also tells the story. We call that the literal, that then also tells the story of Jesus leading all of humanity out of sin into eternal life, to use churchy language there. Hopefully you guys know, into the ultimate meaning and purpose of existence, if that helps. But then, if Mortis is an actual place, and the Mortis gods are actual people. They through this, at least through this arc, they come to tell the story of what Anakin's role is. And that's not everything. That's not the whole thing. I mean, there is the point about how they're the archetypes that, I mean, I'm coming up from a very clearly Christian lens of everything's focused on what Anakin does. And you could broaden it out. And I do wonder if what Baylan is trying to tap into and what
that's what I
Randon's
was
going to say,
going.
you know, and what Sabine is talking about does broaden it out to the overall coherence of the Force.
Well,
And
that was
not
that.
exclusively Anakin's role, if Anakin's exclusively the chosen one, all that stuff. But at least the Clone Wars arc, I'll say, I'll compromise that much and say I think that's kind of what's happening. Where's this thing? But
let's go to Mortis.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, at the very least, I mean, can we use categories like living force and unifying force? Does that help? All that.
I mean, probably not, because it's just. But what I'll just say this when it comes to the Force, nothing helps. Everyone got.
True.
But I'll say this. So I actually do agree with you. I think in terms of the arc itself, the 3 episodes in the Clone Wars, that is exactly what Mortis is all about. It's just about. It's almost like let's tell the whole saga in 3 episodes.
Yeah.
More or less. I guess the part is then, in a weird way, if we kind of look at that, we almost like have almost 2 Mortises. And by 2 Mortises, I mean we have this allegorical, you know, let's just tell the saga in 3 episodes. But now what is Mortis beyond that? What is Mortis with Rebels, with the whole Ahsoka, the Convoy thing? Is this a new thing that...
Good question.
Yeah. Because that starts from the Mortis arc? Because obviously we have what... And now Dave has kind of taken that allegory, that kind of 3 part that maybe only meant to be just 3 parts. And now he's decided I have a whole Ahsoka-based storyline around it.
Yeah.
With Baylan and the Rebels gods and the Mortis gods and all that. So I actually do agree. And that's where I think my whole thing is Mortis real stem from. Not the 3-part arc, but more like, okay, Mortis now is going to be something outside of this allegory. It's going to mean something else.
Maybe to put this way, what I was answering is what is Mortis doing in this Clone Wars arc? And to say, and the questions are connected. Like, what is Mortis? What are these? Who are these 3 figures? I mean, they are connected, right? Because to the extent, I mean, we would say, you know, Anakin being the chosen one to bring balance to the Force, that would be the will of the Force acting through him. You know, his virgin birth and everything. But also that it is the fact that the Force can have a will and have a light, and then be corrupted in the dark, and have this father trying to tie everything together and all that. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, even there's even speculation of the Zepho sages being also being the Mortis god, as the cat made an appearance.
Yes.
There you go. You know, and how they've come up even in this ancient time, and so, you know, I mean, it also is the great tendencies, the 3 tendencies that maybe we have, especially in the way the power of the Force can amplify and guide in the way, you know, the way, like we talk about technology being a thing that guides and defines the message, that it is the message, the medium is the message. Well, if the Force is the medium, then light, dark, and balance, and kind of some mediating. I don't want to say balance, because I think balance is to care for the light, but that's, you know, we can debate that in a minute. Those are the three messages that the Force, the medium of the Force, brings us. So yeah, it's a way of them being personified. But then we can also say, you know, Morai is this real bird that lands on Ahsoka and is bound to Ahsoka. We can say,
what's Baylan doing?
What Baylan is Baylan looking for? Who's Baylan looking for? That these 3 characters actually talk to Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka in this arc. Yeah, that's the question you're after, is who are these three folks?
Well, let's talk about them, shall we? Yeah. So
Segue.
Father, Son, and the Holy Anakin, as I put in the notes. Yeah. So let's start. I'm gonna start with the Son because I put him in the notes first. So the Son, obviously, he is the dark side. He represents the dark side. As quoted by David Talk Star Wars, not evil, but empowered by evil people, a la the Sith. And I'm gonna read a Lucas quote here about the dark side. Lucas quote: "The Force has two sides. It's not malevolent or benevolent thing. It has a bad side to it, involved hate and fear, and the good side involving love, charity, fairness, and hope. The daughter, this is from the daughter from the actual quote. It's not his fault. My nature is to do what is selfless, but my brother will always do what is selfish. So, the Son is the physical representation of the dark side. The dark side is not inherently evil, but it's always empowered by evil people, the Sith, both, and sometimes the Night Sisters.
That's an interesting distinction.
Mhm.
I'm kind of curious. Like, it's not inherently evil, but it's empowered by evil people. Where is that distinction? I'm trying to think here. Is it that? I mean, are we saying that the dark side is simply anger and
Well, there are natural things.
looking out for yourself, death?
I wouldn't say death, but
Well, I would. I mean, that's just it. I mean, on Luke on Octo to Rey, you know, it is the dark side. Well, is the dark side? Is it death? Is death the dark side? It's the difference
I wouldn't
between
say so.
darkness and shadow. Maybe that's the difference. The difference between darkness as evil and shadow as just a feature of the light, a bug, but not a bug, a feature of what happens when light shines on something. Like my water bottle, there's a shadow right here. And to say death that serves life by through decomposition and whatnot, through the generations passing on what they've learned. This is the theme of The Last Jedi. That's not evil, but it could be passing, like Tolkien would say, passing into shadow. I guess we say dark is evil. I'm just trying to think and then tease out, but death for its own sake, that is evil, and killing for its own sake, that is evil. Despair for its own sake, that's evil. I don't know. Maybe that's a distinction.
I mean, let's see. Yeah, I'm just kind of reading more of the notes here. I mean,
yeah.
I guess dark and light aren't inherently good or evil concepts, I guess is the question, and I don't think they are. Darkness is, it's like,
right.
Yeah, you got the nighttime right now, dark outside. That doesn't mean it's evil, but it's but the Sith, who are criminals and bad guys and psychopaths, tend to use that darkness for evil purposes.
To hide.
But that what?
To hide what they want to do,
or to keep themselves alive forever.
Yeah,
through their anger or cloning technology. But yeah, it is. Is it the metaphysical concept of darkness that is evil, or is it Palpatine who is evil and he's just using darkness for his own end because he gets a thrill out of being an angry, bitter old man?
Yeah,
who zaps people.
I mean, I'm just thinking about this some more. Like, I can turn the light off and I can still be doing a good thing in the dark that nobody can see. But I could also turn the light off and do something really evil and terrible and nobody will see. But if I turn the light on, then the distinction is clear. So but the fact that it's dark isn't inherently the evil thing. It's what I do. Maybe that's kind of what you're getting at.
Well, here's another example. Fire.
Yeah.
Is fire evil? It can burn you. It can hurt you.
Yeah.
But, is it the fire that's trying to burn you, or is it the person holding a flamethrower trying to burn you because they're crazy?
I mean, that's also medium and message, right? I mean, the capacity for it. But, I mean, a more obvious example there, the capacity for gun violence is gun accessibility. I know that's a very difficult topic. But also to say, I mean, fire protects, fire cooks, fire gives warmth and light and life. So, yeah, it can do both.
But also there's an interesting thing here, which they didn't go with, and I think they did go with because they kind of go against George's thing. But to kind of add to this whole thing, in some of the original drafts of Mortis, the idea was that the sun was being manipulated by Ghost of the Sith. So
Interesting.
already you kind of have that. Going to be Revan Darth Bane, by the way. That's always interesting.
That is
But but that kind of goes in the idea. It's like the sun, who is just the dark side, natural, the darkness in natural, is being manipulated by evil people.
right.
The Sith, Darth Bane. In fact, even the father at the beginning of Mortis. I think I wrote this down. I hope I did. He says something about the father says, they say powerful people wish to manipulate their power, like the Sith. So he's already kind of going like, we're natural beings, but other people like these Sith folks are always trying to manipulate us
Yeah.
and for our powers. So
Yeah.
it's
I
kind
mean,
of that.
So good.
So it's kind of again that idea of like darkness, not inherently an evil thing, but evil people tend to use that side of themselves the most. You don't hear about
Yeah.
Sith Lord using common compassion to take over the world.
Like the capacity for destruction.
Yeah.
And then the act of destruction itself. I mean, again, that gets to, that destruction for the sake of new life, for the sake of construction. That is destruction for a good cause. Right.
Right.
Again, evolutionary biology. The flourishing of life depends on species dying. Not species dying, but creatures dying so that a more resilient strain of the species can evolve and be more hardy. I mean, that's how evolution works. One thing that does get me at, especially with the sun potentially being manipulated by the Sith.
That was cut, by the way, so that doesn't count anymore.
I know, but it gets me thinking about how in Darth Plagueis, in Luciana's Darth Plagueis, you have a really clear distinction that there is the Force, and we'll get it. We'll talk about the daughter in a minute, but or we'll talk about balance in a minute. But there's the Force, the dark side, the Sith try to control the Force, claim control over the Force, and try to claim control over the galaxy. The Jedi, ideally, servants of the light, seek to submit to the Force and be in balance and harmony with the Force, with other living things. It gets at the personal morality, the personal moral choices, right? It's, do we want the will to dominate others versus the will to be in harmony with the common good, with others? Yeah, I mean, it hits on all those levels. So, I mean, it hits politically, right? A republic versus an empire, ideally, is one that, the empire seeks to dominate over. A republic, we are all the republic, Lena. So we're all coming together, trying to promote the common good. Cosmic Force, the light side, may the Force be with us. Being in league with the Jedi during the High Republic, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So
shall we talk about the daughter?
Yeah, go ahead.
The daughter, she is the light side. She is the champion and defender of the balance. She defends her dad, pretty much. If we consider Canon, the Lucas quote: "As evil begins to take over, it pushes the Force out of balance. It's easier to succumb to evil than it is to be a hero and try to work things through. On the good side, evil is inherently more powerful. It doesn't have the burden of worrying about other people. So the daughter, on the other hand, that is their thing. They are like the Jedi, the champions of the balance. They make sure that the Force is not out of whack. And again, kind of add to the Tumblr blog. The light side always needs all the help it can get. Because on raw power, Palpatine can probably zap you, and it's gonna be painful. But Luke wins with the love of his dad and his friends, and it's always every good Jedi is like they're never alone. They always got their friends and their family with you. They are the few beacons of candles, but oh boy, can they when they do something, they can shine bright. So the daughter always helps the father just as much anytime she can, as you can tell by the dynamic. It's like the son's always rebellious against the balance, while the light's always like very much good daughter's father's girl. Good daughter does what dad tells her to do.
Well, no, she has her will of her own too.
Yeah, but she does. She does.
She plays on the team. She plays for the team.
Yeah, she plays for the team and very much does what the father does. Helps the father out all he can. but the thing about them being brother and sister is light and dark are okay with each other. They're okay with each other existing. The daughter never seeks to kill her brother, at least not until things get a little out of hand. But outright, they never try to kill each other.
Mhm.
But when the brother starts to feel a little bit more, kind of getting a little rebellious here, angsty teen style. That's what the dark side son is. He's a angsty teenager.
There it is. And that's interesting. The lack of maturity, the lack of self-awareness. Right.
I mean, look at most of the Sith Lords who we all meet. Even someone like Palpatine, he's just kind of a bitter old man who, like, when he loses, he's gonna just blow up everything. Like, yeah. And even Vader's like, Kylo Ren's like, they're all just angsty teenagers. And as one of the Tumblr blogs said, and I kind of agree with it. It's actually, as much as I think we all don't want to admit it, it's actually a lot easier to be a bad person than a good person. I'm sorry, that's my belief as well. It's actually hard to be a good person. I think it is. I think it's a lot harder to do the right thing than it is to do the easy thing. Like if someone cuts you off, I mean, it's a lot easier for me just to go like, screw you, finger them off, and just kind of have my patience and wares for them. It's like, people online are like, why aren't you just a good person? Be a good person. It kind of is hard to be a good person sometimes. I think it takes a lot of discipline and a lot, a lot of kind of just got to hold together before, not just lashing out. You shouldn't lash out, but it's a lot harder, I think, than just be. That's why the dark side kind of is sometimes gets a little extra powerful because it's kind of easier to be a crabby person sometimes than be a good person.
I'll say it takes the development of habit.
Exactly.
It takes seeing, it is actually better and feels better sometimes to
in the moment. Yeah.
Well, or I was saying to choosing the light. It feels better to, here's the thing. It's easier to be disconnected and to separate. But then we learn actually it's better to seek connection and growth and reach out. And that's the thing is, it's easier. It can be easier also both to, for some folks, their dark side is, and this is what I was getting at before, is seeking out your own needs isn't the dark side, and people think it is. It isn't. It's for some folks, it's easier, to seek out what they want and what they care about, and only what they care about, and just disregard others. For other folks, it's easier to just succumb and think that that's the path of least resistance. I'm not going to step forward. I'm not going to say what I think and express what I care about. Neither of those are the light side, right?
Right.
You're being a doormat isn't the light side.
No.
Being a part of the human family and considering yourself a part of the human family with others, that's the light side. And so whatever that looks like, either way, it feels like the path of least resistance to either just always assert yourself or never assert yourself. There is this discipline and trust and familiarity with finding spaces and places where you can be vulnerable and you can be clear with what you want and what you need, and in the hope of saying this is what other people want and need, and expressing that and offering that too. That again, it things become easier over time is another way of putting it, right? That's what I mean by the development of habits. And so the Aristotle and then Thomas Aquinas in the Middle Ages would say, we're inclined to good or inclined to evil. It's what we repeatedly do. And then Thomas Aquinas would then say, to use the Star Wars idiom, the Force does guide us and the Force does carry us towards the light. He had a word for that, but that is the will of the Force, and it bends. Martin Luther King, right? There's a moral arc of the universe, and it bends towards justice. Either we're a part of it or we're not. No, it isn't inevitable. And we're going back to Qui-Gon's quote. This is going back to the Dark Rendezvous quote. Whether or not the light always succeeds and turns out right, that's not inevitable. That's not guaranteed. this all gets to Star Wars as a morality tale of, and you can accuse it of being naive. I don't know. I mean, that's the thing with Andor, really pushes the line, but ultimately it's going to come back to what Star Wars is. We're going to talk about that next week again. Come back to, Andor's story in Rogue One always comes back to, whether or not if the light is going to win. It's not about backing the winning side. It's about doing what reaches out and connects and seeks the welfare of all, because that is ultimately how we all win at the end. And
I mean, I think Nemec is the most Star Warsy philosophically of those characters. He kind of gets the big moment at the end. So I think Andor actually is very Star Warsy in that way. But we'll talk about that next week. I mean, that's whether or not, I mean, that's something we can also talk about next week, of whether or not Star Wars should be willing to bring in people who don't agree with its philosophy, depending on what that actually means.
I mean, there's this interesting comment here. And these are interesting stories, like the Acolyte. Sorry, Joel, your head's kind of cut off there. Sith wanting personal gain. It is interesting to suspend our moral disbelief also, and say, to get what you want, you have to do the wrong thing. And those are interesting stories. House of Cards was always an interesting story. Darth Plagueis, the novel, one of the best novels. Yeah, I mean, and so, there is something. It speaks to, again, I'm trying not to use churchy language here. When, to get what you want, to get what you think is right, you have to do the wrong thing. That speaks to how messed up the world is. That's your only option. And in some circumstances, for some people, maybe, I mean, in desperation, if you're starving to death, stealing a loaf of bread, well, whatever. I mean, that's a weird example, but, why are people starving to death in the first place? Go stealing a loaf of bread, go, smashing a window and, in a protest, to make an impact. Well, it's not necessarily the best course of action, and I don't condone that, but I can see why people think that that's a good tactic. That speaks to how messed up our capitalist society is, that leaves a message and makes an impact. And so, that's the thing. It's the dark side. It is pervasive, and it is a resistance to push against it, which is also odd because a lot of evil and dark in our world, especially, the American dream, the capitalist work ethic, says, I can get by through hard work and dedication. I can make it for myself. And that's also false. That's also nonsense. I mean, so many folks who get by and can make it is because they had a great inheritance from their parents, and so it brings up all these themes, and again, we've gone on this wild rabbit trail about light and evil and light and dark and good and evil. Here's another, actually louder than words. I think that's kind of the point, with Star Wars, that the choices we make are the words, are our actual underlying belief, underlying hope and faith. If we hope that this good action will have a good consequence, then we'll make that choice.
Right. And I think that is a good signal to go. My mouse, what's going on? There we go to the Father. Balance. And I'll just get to the Lucas quote. Living force and the greater cosmic force. The living force makes you sensitive to other living things, makes you intuitive, and allows you to read other people's minds, etc. But the greater cosmic force has to do with destiny. It's working with the force. You can find your destiny, and you can choose to either follow it or not. And of course, that is the Father. The Father is the balance. He is the beginning, the middle, the end. He is the big guy with the beard. He, I always said like champion force. He is the natural state of being. It's interesting. He talked about destiny and choose not to. The Father's quote says Anakin, I think near the end, maybe it's near the middle. He says, "Your selfishness shall haunt you, and the galaxy. And yeah,
Yeah.
Anakin's selfishness leads him to make a pact with Palpatine to like save his wife. 25 years of Empire. Woohoo!
Yeah.
That's Anakin's thing. He doesn't want to let go. Doesn't want to let go
Mhm.
of his guilt. Doesn't want to let go of his friends. Doesn't want to let go of his wife. And that constantly, gets him in trouble.
Mhm.
He's the chosen one, but he kind of rejects that because he wants to be with Padme. He gets there in the end, but uh, it's a process.
Yeah.
That's
I
for
mean,
sure.
well, here's again the irony though is that his connection to Padme is ultimately what saves the galaxy. I mean, there's Padme's son writhing on the floor, being killed by Palpatine, and he has to come and save him.
One of those weird things where it's like I feel like George is both pro no attachment, but yet the movie kind of contradicts that because it's his attachment to Luke and Padme that
Yeah.
kind of saved the day. Which, to be fair, there's actually a whole discussion about the whole George's no attachment thing comes like
Mhm.
way after he's done with Revenge of the Sith.
Interesting.
So it's like he kind of George evolved, even though the movie itself is not really saying that. So for the whole thing about
I mean,
that.
well, here's the thing, and this gets at Mortis. This gets at the way the Force binds everything together and everyone together. Attachments can lead to light or dark, right? Attachments can be possessive and the fear of loss and taking these selfish actions because we want to contain and hold on to what we fear to lose, or they can lead to hope in life because there are places of vulnerability and connection and mutual aid and support and nourishing. You know, Anakin and Padme, not really a place of mutual aid. I mean, in Clone Wars, we see a little more. We see it a little better at the
And then
end
we
of
have the Clovis arc where he's
and then
choking at a
Clovis.
guy.
Well, I don't entirely mind him standing up for himself there and standing up for whatever, but it is a little too far. That's that. But at the end of Return of the Jedi, again, there's this great act of sacrifice. He lets go of his own life for the sake of the attachment. And so he, I mean, loses the attachment in a way, but doesn't, right? Secures it really for all time. Secures his ability to come back and return to Ahsoka, as we saw, to maybe to Luke. We'll see. I mean, in Shadow of the Sith, there's a bit of the moment there, but it is tricky. Yeah, that's that's the fascinating thing is, well, what we see again, what we see with the daughter who does sacrifice her life for the sake of the light, for the sake of her father. Um, and to see, I mean, it exposes to the son how far astray he's gone, right? How he
Right.
loses that attachment in his anger, and so yeah, it definitely. I mean, it continues that story. What's fascinating, just stepping back here, is, I mean, it's also to say how Anakin's story encapsulates everything that the Mortis arc is saying about light and dark and attachments and detachment and good attachment and bad attachment too. And yeah, especially, yeah, you see the daughter giving up her life for the sake of the light and carrying herself on through Ahsoka. In a way, I mean, in a way, there's something similar to Force Ghosts there. There's something similar to the way
Kind of like what
the
Kylo Ren did with Rey at the end of Rise of
yeah,
Skywalker
a
a little
little
bit
bit,
too.
right? There is, the way the light can preserve, can endure through death. And that's the thing, is that death can only ever be at its best a servant. It's never the master. If death tries to be the master, uh, like the dark side, then it loses its way and it loses its purpose. When it is a servant to new life, and this again with Octo, I think in a way, what we see with the daughter, and it is tragic what she does, but she preserves the balance, and she's able to, again, we're gonna hopefully see, be present in Ahsoka's life in a way that can preserve Ahsoka's life forward. That sentence doesn't make sense. Present in Ahsoka's life that can preserve Ahsoka's service to the light. I mean, what if there's almost a way of saying, I don't know if we necessarily need to see this story literally happen. And I know we're going into speculation for Ahsoka in the series, but I do want to know what's going on with Morai. What's happening here? What function narratively and spiritually does she have with Ahsoka? Is the daughter somehow imbued in Ahsoka's life, even at the point where she's being falsely accused by the Jedi Council of bombing the temple, and is able to see, no, these aren't the servants of the light. I'm going to be the servants of the light and leave. If Morai is in a way present, if the daughter is somehow present with her, enduring through the daughter's own death, right? That's what I'm getting at here. Um, the in that 5th episode of Ahsoka, she has this near-death experience, and she herself doesn't exactly die per se, but her the darkness within her that she's holding on to, the guilt about Anakin, the potential for turning to the dark that she's holding on to, that actually does encounter a death. It doesn't, Anakin confronts that in her, and kind of almost to say this whole thing about how she's not going to fight, she's going to be willing to die, but instead she chooses life instead. Sorry, right. I'm not being very coherent here. I am being coherent. I'm not being very articulate. She chooses life instead, and that to me is the daughter persevering through her and in her. Even, I mean, this is the weird thing where she gets corrupted by the dark by the sun in the Mortis arc. Ultimately, is able to come back. So I mean, Ahsoka's faced these deaths, and that's, I mean, in faces that in the Twilight of the Apprentice. I mean, she faces the kind of death. I mean, going underneath and then coming back up are all these deaths that she encounters, and she still remains. That's why I call her Ahsoka Eternal, in part because she's, it's never a question. Ahsoka lives. It's never a question mark. There is this destiny for her that I think, again, the daughter exemplifying the eternal perseverance of the light. Not exemplifying, embodying.
Right.
Just demonstrating.
Right. No, you're right. Let's see one more Lucas quote, and then I think we can start speculating about the future.
Yeah. I already have, but go ahead.
Lucas quote: "I wanted to have this mythology footing because I was basing the films on the idea of the Force of two sides, the good side, the evil side, and they both need to be there. Most religions are built on that, whether it's called yin and yang, good and God and devil. Everything is built on push-pull, tension created by two sides of the equation." Well, I mean, that's a little bit of a misconception because yin and yang isn't really good and evil. And there's some stories where the devil and Satan that we know in fiction are kind of different. The whole thing.
It's Zen Methodism.
Well, even just the Satan thing of Satan in the Bible is not as cool as Satan as in our own pop culture fiction.
I want to get into that again. And here's where I'm constantly coming from is, at some point, Eastern and Western, or not Eastern Western, but
I could just like to blame pop culture.
Like Taoism and Judeo-Christianity in that sense are incompatible, because where am I going to go with this? It's tricky. I mean, this is a fundamental imbalance within all conversations about light and dark, and why we have creamsicle Jedi versus why Ahsoka is kind of a gray Jedi, or she a true servant of the light, etc. So from what I understand with Eastern religion, yin and yang, they aren't good and evil. They are this push-pull, maybe between serving self and other, push-pull between the reality of darkness and evil, and anger and lashing out and whatnot, and the reality of serenity and selflessness and compassion. In the Christian tradition, there's a different conception of that. There's light, and then it's not that there's dark has its own unique presence. There's light and then there's unlight, and so it's not, it isn't so much a push pull. It's we live in less than the ideal, and so how do we live in less than the ideal? And that's kind of what I'm getting at, is this with the comment before about um with Madison's comment here, in a world where sometimes still sorry, you have to poke your head up. In a world where maybe the least bad option is still not great, if it's the least bad option, you should do it, if that's the only thing you got. But that's not meant to be the end. That's not meant to be the point. And that's the thing, is there's still an imbalance while we're still in this world, in this plane of existence, if you will. So again, it's tricky. I don't quite have a resolution. I don't quite have an answer.
My answer is George Lucas is still an American white guy who made up a fictional religion, taking a bunch of stuff and smushing it together and hoping it all would work.
There's your answer. Sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. Or some stories it works in one way, and some stories it works in another way.
Well, I mean, I think that's just who's writing it, right?
Yeah.
Like, most people aren't Taoist, or most people aren't really interested in religion. So, not everyone's writing kind of on that level of philosophical thinking of, especially Eastern religion.
Yeah.
Forget Western religion for a second. Most people don't even know about Eastern religions
True.
and the yin yang, and that's why we need more Asian writers on the
That's
writing
true.
room.
That's true.
While others just kind of write, Palpatine is fiction Satan, and that he's pure evil and mwahaha evil, and Rey light side good, and da da da.
I mean, in some stories, Vader is just the baddie. He's Space Hitler. He's out to hurt you. And yet, in the deeper story, he's still the chosen one, undergoing this long death to new life. And that's kind of what I mean by light and unlight. In that's what I'm getting at, is death can never be a thing in itself. It always has to ultimately serve life. And so, yeah, and Vader, I call Vader the failed attempt to forget Anakin Skywalker, right? Well, you see in Kenobi with the "Don't worry, Obi-Wan, I killed Anakin." No, you didn't. You didn't kill Anakin. He's still there. He's right there. So Anakin Skywalker was weak. I killed him. No, you didn't. He's standing right there.
Right.
Yeah, it's a failed attempt to forget Anakin, and Padme's son reminds him who he is.
Yeah, I mean, that's always the thing about talking about Star Wars. It's like it's based on Buddhist ancient traditions, and then you got the Christian reading, and it just makes it all very, very mucky.
Whatever you latch onto. I obviously latch onto one thing. I'm interested in suspending my moral disbelief. Leslie Headland, give me a story where things are less than ideal.
I mean, we don't know if what she's going to do. We're just assuming that.
Yeah, and again, next week we'll talk about can that happen?
Right. Or had that even been happening? That's the question I will ask too.
I mean, Andor. There's a question with Andor, right? These are terrorists. These are, what's his face?
Saw Gerrera?
No, him, but also the guy with the speech.
Luthen?
Yeah, Luthen. That speech saying, "I have to basically become evil in order for other people to be good." And like, well, okay, that's sad, but I guess that's the story we've been given. That's a sign of how evil the world is, and it's there, and that's a reality. So,
but is he really evil? That's the question. That's a great question. I would say he's not. I think he's doing but justified.
There's the question. Yeah.
But yeah, let's think about the future. So I actually thought about this because I'm glad I had time to think about it.
Yeah.
I do wonder, maybe, and I actually just thought about this right now. Okay, so Mortis in the Mortis in the context of the Clone Wars is basically a big allegorical kind of meta story for the whole 6 films, just the 6 films. What if Filoni, what are you going to do this time? We'll go back, do Mortis again, almost do Mortis again, almost.
Mm-hmm.
But this time, he's going to do like a big meta allegorical commentary about just Star Wars as a franchise forever. Because, here's the thing. Star Wars is never going to end. They're always going to make stories. There's always going to be problems. Even right now, the whole did the Chosen One prophecy happens already on shaky ground because Palpatine came back. It was always going to be on shaky ground though, because there's no way they're not going to ever do Sith again.
True.
Eventually, one day, the Sith are just as iconic as the Jedi. They've been around since day one.
Well, there always needs to be an evil in the galaxy,
right?
In order for us to have a story to tell,
right? There has to be problems. There's, whatever we consider balance of the Force in terms of there's always going to be conflict in the galaxy. There's never going to be peace. Maybe there'll be grander peace, but there's always going to be smaller conflicts or just a problem. So I do wonder now, just kind of looking at it more from an allegorical sense instead of Baylan wants to do something a lot more physical. And Baylan is kind of talking about this already. He is talking about the cycle that never ends, again and again and again. I do wonder if almost Filoni's going to say that cycle exists. It might never really quote unquote end, because obviously from maybe that meta perspective. Oh my, someone's getting a cold.
I think I actually am. Sorry.
Oh gosh.
I'm okay. I'm alive.
From that meta perspective, Star Wars will never end, and maybe but justify why that's going to be because and kind of now, instead of Mortis is the metaphor for the 6th movie saga, Mortis will become, for this time around, will be the metaphor for Star Wars just as a franchise now moving forward and beforehand, and the fact that Star Wars is forever and will never end, and it'll, as long as it makes money, and even if it doesn't make a lot of money, Disney's still gonna make Star Wars movies because they don't ever let their IPs just dwindle. That's never how they do. So it's not.
He's been around.
It wasn't 6 is no longer the ending of Star Wars. There is no ending of Star Wars. It will continue on as long as it can. Maybe they're never gonna say after this point no more Star Wars. We can do backwards, but we're not going to do forwards. No, forwards, backwards, eternal timeline.
Right.
And I do wonder if maybe that's the new meta story for Mortis is just the cycle, the eternal story forever. And not just centered around Anakin anymore. Because, if you'd have asked me in 2005, what is Star Wars? It's the story of Anakin. I would have said, yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
2023 and beyond, I'm going to challenge. I don't know if that's the definite article anymore. Which again might go more into what we can talk about next week. Yeah. But yeah, that's sort of my kind of view on it now. Kind of after having this discussion is. Maybe we're looking too much in Baylan's gonna unleash the sun, and the sun and Thrawn are gonna team up, and more this Dave setting up an allegory for here's Star Wars for what it is now forever.
I mean, I wonder if Baylan is looking for something too literal, and then I don't know, Baylan or Shin or however they handle Ray Stevenson is disappointed. He thinks it's going to be the source of power to tap into, and it turns out, actually, no, it's a meaning story, and I mean, it's kind of well, here's an interesting one. There's so what you're getting at is that there isn't going to be, we aren't going to ever get this kind of end times prediction event, right?
Right.
I wonder if it will somehow, if whatever light and dark mean will continue to revolve around Anakin now, more so now that Filoni's writing is, with both Luke and Ahsoka, and this is something Dom and I have talked about a bit, just off camera. The way it might reflect on Anakin's legacy, and so he's still gonna, I think, have an important, somewhat central role going forward. At least for the time being, at least until this next generation with Luke, Ahsoka, and with Rey, possibly. I do go back to in Mortis, in the when the son and daughter are pulling Obi-Wan and Ahsoka, Anakin's past and Anakin's future apart, and he's trying to save them both. The wheel of time spins around, light and dark, the day and night spins around. That's just a measure of time. That's just the light and dark. In that sense, it's just the order, the clock, if you will. That there are times in which the darkness prevails over the light. Hopefully, again, with Qui-Gon, there are going to be times that darkness prevails over the light. You follow the light because it's the light. And so Star Wars, I mean, that's the thing, this conversation we've had. Yeah, I do think Anakin has a central role, but, is Filoni, through Ahsoka, telling the story of that Star Wars is always, we hope the light prevails over the darkness. We hope it does. Right? Rebellions are built on hope. Whenever the Empire trying to snuff out hope for good reason, because we hope the light prevails over the darkness. It won't always, but we act as if it will, and
Right.
so, or we act as if we hope it will, and so that's always been. I mean, that's been the story since 1977. We hope Luke is able to go up and take out the Death Star. He might not be able to, but he does. We hope. So we don't know. In some resolution with Anakin and Luke in Return of the Jedi, we hope Luke doesn't follow the dark side. He doesn't ultimately, and everything is okay for the time being, right? We hope. Here's the thing: we know Anakin's going to follow the dark side. We hope that Luke and Leia are the spark that changes everything. That puts a limit on the extent of the darkness. I mean, it is this poignant thing where we have, Palpatine, Vader, and Tarkin looking out of the skeleton of the Death Star, and then you have Leia, and then you have Luke, who are that they have the last word in Revenge of the Sith. Right. That is, I mean, and I could see Dave Filoni saying that is what the Mortis gods and their role in bring to us, the viewer, that story again, right? Even if we might tend to forget, we might think, Andor is all about people having to make these moral compromises. We might think, think Baylan and Shin, and Shin especially, is going to succeed in her moral compromises. We think Thrawn is going to do some damage, but in the end, we know he can't ultimately, because that's the morality story that
Right.
Star Wars is about. I mean, again, we're getting to everything we're going to talk about next week, but it's exciting to say. It's exciting to see that Mortis is going to be used in this way to tell this deeper meaning, in a way that it's only been touched on a little bit, and I wonder if it is going to be the size of these mountains.
Right. Like, I think I could honestly see Dave maybe, talking about Mortis, almost doing the Mortis arc again, but in live action, but not in in that kind of way. But it's like he's reintroduced. I think I think we have to also think this way as well. He's reintroducing the idea, and he's giving it to wider audiences now. Because let's face it, more people are going to watch these live action shows than the animated ones. Sadly, they shouldn't, but that's the world we live in.
Yeah.
I know, but it's he's going to reintroduce the idea. So I think in some ways he might do that thing again, where, like I said, he's going to tell an allegory story with with Mortis, but this time around, because it doesn't make much sense to just retell the story of Anakin Skywalker through that again, because we already did that. That's already done. Maybe this time it's not even the whole sequel trilogy, maybe not even the whole Skywalker saga. I think maybe what Dave's going to do again is it's finally going to cement to people Star Wars is not the Skywalker saga anymore. And quite frankly, it hasn't been for a long time, in my opinion. It's
still the story of light and dark.
Yeah, exactly. It's the story of light and dark. That is the story of Star Wars. Light and dark. Forever.
And light overcoming dark.
Exactly. And I think that's that's kind of the story of Star Wars at the end of the day. And honestly, kind of
Mm.
hint to next week. I think that's what Star Wars has always stuck by,
Yeah.
even if it's as simplistic as Palpatine blows up. Rey still wins at the end of the day and gets to live on. So there's never been the only time Dark One was Revenge of the Sith.
And again, as I said, that's still limited by the hope of Luke and Leia.
Exactly. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm actually leaning towards now. I've been thinking more more physical when I think more. I think the actual Mortis storyline will be allegorical, and I'm curious to see how people take it, because I've always felt that they're looking for like an endpoint, and I think we gotta accept there is no endpoint. There is no Jesus is coming and we're gonna cleanse the world of evil and we're all gonna live happily ever after.
Right.
I don't
We're
think
not going
that's
to get
happening.
that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we got something of that with Anakin. I do. But not ultimately, not finally, right? No, that's kind of the
sequel still happened, so
yeah.
Thrawn's still gonna happen, so
that's true.
But yeah.
Well, I'll say this. I think I don't think we're gonna go to Mortis. I think we're gonna stay on Peridia. I think there's something about Peridia that is able to tap into Mortis in a more direct way, like Lothal, right? They're able to,
I thought Peridia was Mortis for a second, weirdly enough.
Yeah, and but maybe, I mean, again, that's the question: is the real planet? But the it'll be able to tap into the vision and the reality that is Mortis in a way. I mean, there's a reason those mountain statues look so close to the figures, right?
Well, they are the figures. I think they don't look close. They are the figures.
That's true, and there's the consistency with Rebels
right
there. I mean, as opposed to seeing the Zepho sages. I mean, I don't know if we're going to actually encounter the son or the father necessarily. We've already seen the daughter. We see Morai, but I think it's going to be a little more, slightly more implied. It would be weird and wild, just like we got World Between Worlds. So maybe I could be wrong.
Sam Witwer in makeup.
Yeah, I was just about to say, bring back Sam Witwer.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think there's gonna be some it's gonna be some sort of, maybe some artifact or something kind of weird sci-fi-ish. It might be just a little too much to introduce these guys. I don't know. Maybe they'll be able to figure it out. I'd be happy to be wrong, but
yeah,
I just think they're gonna just convey the meaning of the son, the meaning of the father. But I mean, that's the thing. I want Baylan to be disappointed. He's looking for this literal source of power, and what it really is the Force telling a story.
Right. So like, to say like, that's the story, like light and dark is always gonna be in and out, yeah, Palpatine came back for a little bit, but we beat him again and wins, and next 15 years, if that Rey film happens, I hope it's not, just another galactic war, but some problem's gotta happen, otherwise there's no story to tell. So there's gonna be some issues. Even look, I mean, the High Republic, great example. In my opinion, High Republic, I still have the opinion that even what's going on now, the Republic and the Light is still pretty strong. It's just that there's problems going on.
Yeah.
At least compared to like when the Empire, and like that's when the Force is really out of whack.
Yeah.
So yeah. I will be curious to see how this meshes into whatever Thrawn's doing, if it will, if it won't. Like, Dave talked about how he doesn't want to just make it Empire versus Rebels again. And already you kind of have a difference if the New Republic doesn't blow up and you have a fleet. So it's like you're kind of more on equal footing. But also I'm curious, like, the thing about Dave is he's not a military sci-fi guy. He's a Force guy. He's all about the weird Force stuff. So how does that weird Force stuff mesh into Thrawn? Is he our main bad guy? Are there our good friend Din has speculated maybe he's not? I don't know. I do think maybe originally Baylan and Thrawn were meant to be almost duo antagonists, so like they're equally threatening just with their own thing.
Yeah, I can see that.
Now we don't know anymore, sadly, because of Ray Stevenson and how that's going to be handled. We'll see. I mean, even in the original Thrawn trilogy, it's like Thrawn and Sabaoth were the original
I
kind
guess
of the
have
two
both. Yeah.
big two. Um, hang on, sorry, my dad.
That's okay. I mean, just to chime in there, just thinking about that, I hope I'm wrong
Mhm.
in terms of
I don't
the
think they're gonna do
son.
Stab by Oz. I promise.
No, yeah, but I mean, Baylan. I think Baylan was going to be something like that, right?
I think he'll be our force bad guy,
Yeah,
but I don't know if he'll be like a crazy clone going. "Oh."
but like he's after some sort of ancient
Yeah.
power.
Mhm,
I think. I mean, you have in the notes. I'm going to steal from your notes here.
mhm.
He's looking for the dagger. You know,
Yeah.
and I actually don't think that's that wild. You have this note. It's a wild theory. We have the dagger of Mother Talzin,
Mhm,
and we have all the weird Night Sister stuff in
mhm.
live action. Dave just threw it at us and hoped everyone got it, and I hope enough people got it. I mean, those of us who've seen Clone Wars and Rebels do, but
Right.
uh, especially Clone Wars do. But yeah, I mean, maybe they're. I don't think we'll see the son of the father. I don't think so.
If
But maybe,
anyone could live, I'm just saying, if anybody can come back,
yeah.
it is them. Like Palpatine. I mean, I still buy it because Palpatine.
Yeah.
Maul, we're stretching it. But these guys, they're weird, forcey people.
Well, no, I'm saying they could. I just don't know if the live action storytelling will do it. In like the
Right.
real world, it might confuse people too much. It might be the whole,
Right.
the whole real world problem that we have
Yeah.
of throwing things at more casual fans too much. But again, I could be wrong. Could be entirely wrong.
Yeah.
I think if anything, it'll be a bit more like Rebels, where we see depictions. We've already seen the depiction.
Mhm.
It's a pretty giant depiction. It's hard to miss. And that Baylan or Shin or whoever is going to tell the story
Right.
of the son, and
And the
then I don't know,
Siths.
and the
Yeah.
Sith, and who knows what. It's a good question. Again, I could be wrong, but
I have more thing I just wanted to bring up because I've been thinking about it for a while,
yeah,
and I find it kind of interesting. And now that because
Yeah.
someone brought it up, and I've been thinking about it. So the death of Miri come from Peridia, right? That has been established. The death of the apparently like the Night Sisters originated from there.
I
Before they
guess
went
so.
to death.
Yeah,
That's what I kind of got
and
out of
there's the
it.
thing with Kujet there too, if that's where you're going. But
No, actually, I find it interesting, and no,
Yeah.
I'm not. And no, I'm not going where you think I'm going. But
Okay.
follow me. Son,
Mhm.
daughter,
Yeah,
father, mother Talvin, great mothers.
yeah.
There's something there, and no, it's not Abelos, guys. It's
Well,
not
I thought
Abelos,
it was
but
something like Abeloth, but
I don't think it's Abelos. But I do think there's an interesting thing that they're called the mothers, and that
yeah,
Mother Talvin is a mother, and there is no mother. And in fact,
True.
the father actually said, there was no mother. I raised them, I birthed them.
Yeah. I wonder if that's just the Night Sisters. I think that's just more of a generic monastic thing.
Maybe, but it
Yeah,
is interesting. It's just
possible.
something I thought about just there.
Yeah.
Especially
I
because they
mean,
come from this place.
yeah. Again, stealing from your notes again. The one thing I will say definitively, and I've mentioned this, I went into this already. Ahsoka and the daughter are some sort of fusion bond.
Sounds
Right.
like it. I
I
agree
mean,
with that.
I think that's the story we get in Clone Wars. And so again, the story of the perseverance of the light is what I'm getting, and for Ahsoka to embrace that as a character.
Yeah, and I think I'm gonna be honest, I think that's also the best way to kind of
Yeah.
make the Chosen One prophecy make sense in the wider context of Star
Absolutely.
Wars. Because I've said this before. I'm sorry I'm keep going on these tangents, but
Yeah.
but there are things in Star Wars that, in my opinion, kind of I don't want to say only work, but I think they're a lot less hard to notice when it's just 1 through 6 and that's it.
Yeah.
But now we have Star Wars Forever. So, destroy the Sith. Well, are we destroying the Sith forever or just destroying the Sith at the current time?
Right.
Because let's face it, there's nothing stopping Sith Lord from coming back anytime soon. Even the way we depict Anakin's redemption, it's easy to kind of have Luke kind of look at his father going, did good, Dad. Anakin Force Ghost going, I did good, son. And now Star Wars is forever. It's like, well, what does Leia think? What are all the millions of people who Anakin slaughtered as Darth Vader think?
Yeah.
They're probably not happy about this. They probably aren't going to forgive him. And then, all the other stuff too.
Which is a question Canon hasn't answered yet.
and even and even stuff like kind of the the at the end of the end, like we defeated the Emperor, the galaxy is going to be great, the Senate will be restored, and obviously now we have to deal with the real world consequences of actually we have to rebuild this government from scratch, and there's a lot of problems.
And that's the Mandalorian in the Coruscant episode, right?
Yeah. So I do
feels
think
like Andor, but
I mean, that's sort of. I don't need it to like explain the Chosen One prophecy or Balance of the Force, but I do think it can kind of help fans, understand Star Wars is now forever, and it's gonna continue beyond what George had probably intended. So we have. I don't want to say make sense of it, but kind of maybe some ways redefine it. In some ways, there are things I do think will get redefined, and other things that just kind of like mesh within the wider context now of Star Wars. Palpatine came back.
Yeah,
it's canon, people. It's too late to change it.
It was going to be an episode in Trevorrow's episode 9 anyway. So,
well, no, not me. Actually, Palpatine never came back in Trevorrow's episode 9.
Okay,
Mortis was going to be in there, but Kylo was just going to be the bad guy. But but
who's the one who was going to say like give him the map to Mortis? Who was that?
Palpatine. It was a hologram of Palpatine.
A hologram. Okay.
Yeah, Palpatine had like this whole recording of like.
So like Operation Cinder type of thing.
Kind of like if Luke went to the dark side, then you gotta go take him to Mortis for some reason, and then we're gonna rule the galaxy. It's a weird thing.
Yeah.
I can read that later, but another day. But yeah, I think because that's what Filoni kind of does he kind of makes it all feel cohesive in one big thing. So like here's the George things, but here's the non-George things, and let's bridge them together.
Yeah, I mean. The weird out there. I mean, like you said, he's the weird Force guy. So maybe we'll see the Son. Maybe not. I think the best bet is we'll see Morai and Ahsoka be the daughter in a meaningful narrative way.
And maybe Anakin is the father now. We don't. I do think Anakin will play a part. Don't get me wrong. But when I said it's no longer the story of Anakin Skywalker. Yeah. It's no longer 1 through 6. That's just kind of what I meant.
Yeah, there are other characters,
other chosen ones, other heroes.
Yeah,
other sagas maybe. But yeah,
I do think there will be. I mean, now that Filoni's in the picture and J.J. Abrams is out of the picture, I think there will be more. Yeah, I think there will be more sustained reflection. Again, this is something Dom and I have talked about. More sustained reflection on Anakin's legacy, and Ahsoka.
I mean, episode 5, is it really J.J. Abrams' fault that there's no Anakin reflection? Just everybody in that time period was kind of in that anti-prequel mindset.
Fair. Now that we have, again,
Collins never did it.
Now, like you were saying last week, now that the prequelism isn't necessary, that's very much ingrained in what Star Wars is.
That's why I don't blame J.J. Abrams. I think that was just a Lucasfilm mandate in general. Because there's not a lot of prequel. There's not even a lot of prequel stuff in the episode 9 that Colin did to try to planets.
Yeah, it's Coruscant.
Yeah, but
I get what you mean. There's now that we're in this post original trilogy is the bee's knees era. Is the only thing. There's going to be more sustained reflection on Anakin's legacy as the centrality he has to the story, whatever that means, whatever that looks like. Because, I mean, there's centrality to Ahsoka's life and to Luke's life.
Oh, yeah, at least in this time period, sure. I mean, maybe more afterwards, or, with Dawn of the Jedi, it's like, how much of Anakin's legacy can you really do?
Not with Dawn of the Jedi at all, but...
Right.
Although maybe you never know.
Maybe more with Rey stuff, if Anakin wants to pop in and say, hi, Rey.
If Luke and Ahsoka want to be involved in passing on to Rey.
If that happens, we don't know. But let's not get overly speculative here.
That's a whole other episode, the legacy of Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah. I mean, maybe, that's kind of what I do kind of hope, I do agree. I do think that's what this Mortis thing should kind of talk about, and maybe even Anakin saying, I did my part, but the world is the galaxy and the history is a lot bigger than me, Ahsoka.
True.
It's not all about me. I actually think maybe he could say that, like, it's not all about me.
He could say that word for word.
Because
I mean, she needs to let go of that, right? That's the thing she's had to confront, is that it's not all about me, because and therefore the Empire isn't your fault.
Right, and also, we're done with the Skywalker saga. We're moving on to other plot points now.
That's true.
It's a bigger, the High Republic and Acolyte and all that stuff. So we're branching out. We're branching.
Yeah, branching.
But yeah, I don't really have anything else to say. I think we've said everything we can about Mortis,
Yeah.
or at least for now.
Yeah.
Until hopefully Ahsoka season 2 and the Filoni film come out, and or how they handle all of that. I like my idea of Mortis will be less of an actual Baylan must have the dark dagger to give it to Thrawn, and Thrawn will then wield the powers of Mortis, and more just it's kind of probably going to be just kind of a weird meta narrative of like what Star Wars is now.
Maybe we'll see. It's fascinating. We definitely talked about Mortis. We got into everything about what Star Wars is. We can't help it. That's again
kind of the same
what
thing.
The arc is about, and that's what these characters are about, and this is what these characters do. These three, this whole these archetypes that Sabine says.
And I'll just finish off by saying, if Mortis was about what Star Wars is about in 2010, I think 10, 11, then Mortis should be about what Star Wars is about in the year 2024 or whenever that episode leads up, those things happen.
Yeah, 2024, 2025. That's I mean that it's amazing that's what it can do. That is definitely what it can do. But for now, that is a good point to wrap things up. We've gone 2 hours and 10 minutes. That's all right. Thanks everyone for joining, sticking in. Thank you for your comments down below. Let us know what you thought. What do you think? What do you think Mortis is? What do you think Mortis does and Mortis means? And what the father, son, and daughter mean? What do you think? How do you think it'll be picked up in Ahsoka and future storytelling? Let us know in the comments below on all these socials, anywhere you get your podcasts here. Please do like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Keep it locked on the flagship Thursday night, on Tractor Beam Thursday afternoon or Thursday morning, wherever you are. Let us know, and let us know what you think. Also join the Discord. Check us out there in the link below. I think those are the plugs. Go back to the plugs here. Joel, where can they find you on the internet?
You can find me at JID 2021. Again, JID 2021 on Twitter. At the Iron Cannon Pod. I'm not always there a lot, but
Just
of course,
Iron Cannon Pod. Yeah.
But of course, you can always find me the most on the Star Wars Underworld Discord, where I'll always get back to your messages, and I will always post interesting things on Star Wars.
Definitely keeping the lights on, keeping everything going in there. You can follow me on Instagram and Threads at MNEUG1138. I'm still on the platform formerly known as Twitter at NEUG485. And getting back into tweeting and threading at Iron Cannon Pod, EYEONCANONPOD. Also check it out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And again, Tractor Beam at 12:15 Thursdays, 12:15 Eastern, 9:15 a.m. Pacific time. Next week, as mentioned multiple times, Star Wars. Is there a theme? Is there one consistent theme? Thematic continuity, not necessarily talking about music, Star Wars theme, but thematic moral themes in Star Wars. What do we mean when we talk about the morality of Star Wars and the morality play? Building up on everything we said tonight, obviously, but lots more I'm sure we can dive into. But until then, Joel, let's blow this thing and head home, back away from Mortis, back to the real world, by whatever it is. All right.
We've been gone for only a second? What do you mean we've been gone for a second?
All right.